statements that I wanted to make before oath is administered. That you have been invited before this ad hoc committee, which is investigating allegations that were made by Police Commissioner in the KwaZulu-Natal Province, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, on that day of 6 July 2025. The purpose is for you to assist the committee in its oversight work. You will be expected to give a testimony here. The allegations include, among others, unlawful disbandment of the Political Killings Task Team, the PKTT, or NPKTT, the alleged moratorium on the filling of vacancies within the South African Police Services, the SAPS, an alleged corrupt relationship between senior leadership within the SAPS and members of the public, as well as political interference in the work of the SAPS. Lieutenant General Dimpane, in extending invitation, the ad hoc committee chairperson has indicated to you that you may provide such information to the committee if you so wish, under oath in terms of powers, privileges, and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act 2004. And please be informed that by law you are required to answer fully and satisfactorily all questions lawfully put to you, or to produce any document that you are required to produce in connection with the subject matter of inquiry, notwithstanding the fact that the answer or the document could incriminate you or expose you to criminal or civil proceedings or even damages. Please note that you are, however, protected in that the evidence given under oath or affirmation before a House or a Committee of Parliament may not be used against you in any court or place outside Parliament. And that is why we had to declare this facility a parliamentary precinct before we proceed. Except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or documents required in these proceedings. Once again, please be aware that in terms of Section 17(2) of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, any person who willfully furnishes a House or a Committee of Parliament with information or makes a statement before it which is false or misleading commits an offence and is liable to a fine or imprisonment to a period not exceeding 2 years. You will be required to take an oath or affirmation. Which one do you elect?
I will take an oath, Chair.
Thank you so much. If you choose to take an oath, you will then follow me as I dictate. You say "I" and mention your full names.
I, Lieutenant General Puleng Patricia Dimpane,
Swear that the evidence I shall give
swear that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you so much. We are done with this part. I'm handing over to you, SC, and I want to wish both of you good luck in leading evidence. We shall run until we break at 13 hours.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members. As indicated earlier, my colleague, Ms. Sikalala, will lead the evidence of General Dimpane this morning. Thank you.
Or is it you, Advocate Sikalala?
Good morning, Chair. Yes.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Good morning, committee members. Good morning, General Dimpane.
Morning.
How are you doing?
I'm okay, and you?
I'm all right, thanks. I just want to deal with one matter of housekeeping in relation to General Dimpane's statement. Can I just confirm that members have before her statement, but it was also accompanied by a set of annexures. I understand that those annexures are made available electronically. Can I just get confirmation that the electronic annexures have been made available? Okay. General Dimpane, I see that you have brought some people with you from the SAPS. Could you introduce them to the committee?
Thank you, Chair. I do have Major General Ramorena Tswai from our legal department in SAPS. Next to her is Major General Matlo. She's the Chief Risk Officer in SAPS. Then I have Brigadier Fansel. He works in my office and responsible for budget management in my office. Then I have Warrant Officer Lekau, who is assisting me with driving as well as protection duties for the CFO.
Thank you. General Dimpane, maybe as a way of kicking off, you stated paragraph 7 of your statement that you joined the SAPS in 2007 as a lateral hire. Can you talk us through your background and how you got to be the Chief Executive Officer?
Thank you, Chair. I joined the South African Police Service in 2007 as an internal auditor. It was an appointment that is called the lateral appointment. At that time, I was a senior superintendent. The current rank is a colonel. And I worked in the Free State when SAPS was establishing its internal audit units across the country. I was then appointed to head the unit in the Free State province. I was promoted as a brigadier to then head the finances in that part of the province. It was a provincial head finance. And I then also until 2015, I headed the finances in the Free State SAPS. In 2015, then I got an opportunity to be appointed in a provincial government department, still in the Free State as a CFO, the post that I only occupied for a year. And then I was reinstated back in SAPS in 2016 as a Major General, occupying the post. Then it was called the Deputy Provincial Commissioner responsible for physical resources, until 2019, when I was promoted, took up the post of the Chief Financial Officer in head office in Pretoria.
Thank you. At the time of your appointment as the Chief Financial Officer, who was the National Commissioner at the time?
It was
Take us through what is the relationship between you as the CFO and that of the National Commissioner?
the National Commissioner is the accounting officer of SAPS. He's the DG. He's the head of this department. And the PFMA dictates that the accounting officer should appoint a CFO to assist him or her to execute his responsibilities or her responsibilities as outlined in terms of Part 2, Chapter 5 of the PFMA. So I'm appointed precisely to execute those responsibilities and assist the accounting officer in this regard. So I report directly to the accounting officer as the Chief Financial Officer.
Okay. So the National Commissioner is the accounting officer in terms of the PFMA, and you are there to be able to support the role of the National Commissioner. Can you, it's already outlined in your statement, can you take us through the various things that you're responsible for as then the Chief Financial Officer reporting to the National Commissioner?
Thank you, Chair. As indicated, I'm appointed and assigned responsibilities to assist the accounting officer in terms of those responsibilities that are outlined on Chapter 5 of the PFMA Part 2. My responsibilities include budget management. I oversee the budget of the entire SAPS, expenditure management for the entire organization across the country, bookkeeping as well as reporting the financial statements. My responsibility. I also coordinate the audit issues that will include the Auditor General activities for the department. I'm also responsible for compensation services. This is managing the issues such as salaries, debtors, allowances for the entire organization. I'm also responsible for internal control as well as issues that talks to governance. I participate in the audit committee. I also chair the combined assurance. I worked very closely with the internal auditors, including the Office of the Chief Risk Officers. All the governance structures I am responsible for or oversee because to assist the accounting officer in terms of the duties that are outlined in Chapter 5.
Okay. So just taking you now to paragraph 8 of your statement, do you want to just maybe, if you want to read it into the record, you wanted to clarify really what is your role with regards to the approval of expenditure and so on? You can read it from the record or you can explain.
Yes. While I oversee financial operations, it is crucial to understand that my role does not extend to operational decisions. Operational decisions are taken by the relevant program managers that are responsible for operations and ultimately with the National Commissioner. I am not responsible for contract awards, or I do not have any direct involvement in supply chain management prior to the recent changes in terms of the structural changes. My function is to confirm that funds are available and to ensure that there is compliance to financial prescripts. I do not approve expenditures in the sense of initiating specific projects, task teams. Instead, I make recommendations as well as ensure and confirm financial viability. The only approvals I make relates to the activities that are within my division. My division is called Financial Management Services.
So as I understand what you're saying from paragraph 8 is that you are responsible for at least the definition of financial management services.
Yes.
But in relation to things such as contract awards or what operational decisions are taken, those operational decisions sit elsewhere, is that correct?
Yes. Historically, the division supply chain management was not integrated into the CFO's office. This is a separate division that is managed by Lieutenant General Fani, who is currently the divisional commissioner, and he reports directly to the National Commissioner. However, I wish to state that since May 2025, a new organizational structure has been approved, and this organizational structure then amends the reporting lines of the division supply chain management to be reporting directly to the CFO. However, this new organizational structure is yet to be implemented. This is pending processes that are unfolding gradually within the relevant restructuring committees. The implementation is ongoing and gradual. Therefore, for most of the period under discussion, supply chain management was a distinct function and it remained so pending the integration. My current performance agreement that I have signed with the National Commissioner as I report to him reflects my duties relating only to financial management services, not supply chain.
Yes. And if the committee had the benefit last week of hearing from Lieutenant General Fani in relation to issues of supply chain management, and also had the benefit of being able to see the organizational structure. And he also confirmed in his evidence that he reports directly in relation to supply chain issues to the National Commissioner, and you report directly in relation to finance matters to the National Commissioner.
Correct.
So, how your evidence before the committee has been structured is that you deal with essentially 3 themes. You deal with the approval and budget allocations in relation to the PKTT, which is the next topic that we're going to discuss. The second topic is you deal with your interactions with the minister, in particular Minister Mkhwanazi. And then the third topic, you deal with the point at which your department interacted with the health risk management contract.
Correct.
So maybe then as an overview, can you broadly give the committee an indication of how the budgets are structured or allocated within the SAPS?
Thank you, Chair. The budget as well as resource allocation follows a program structure. We have 5 programs. Program 1 that deals with everything to do with administration within the department. Program 2, which is our biggest program within our budget structure, that deals with everything to do with visible policing. Program 3, that deals with crime detection, that will include DPCI. And we then have program 4 that deals with matters that relates to crime intelligence, with the last program being program 5 that deals with protection services, that includes VIP protection. So these are the 5 main budget programs. They do have sub-programs within them. And after those sub-programs, then you will have relevant divisions, you'll have units in this regard. So that is how our budget structure in terms of programs is outlined.
Yes. So I understood you to say that program 2 is visible policing.
Yes.
Is that where task teams would be located?
That is where task teams, intervention teams, as well as project teams will be located. There is a National Operation Coordination Center that runs almost all the interventions, the task teams, as well as operations sitting within program 2.
So when you're trying to then allocate a budget in relation to task teams, or maybe we can take one step back, what is the manner in which you allocate to task teams as opposed to various units and other things that you have within the SAPS?
We do have a formal allocation methodology where we will then allocate the budget to all cost centers, but specifically to the task teams, we allocate to the National Operation Coordination Center or to a cost center that will be determined by the accounting officer in this particular regard. So all these operations, task teams and interventions are then coordinated nationally through the National Operation Coordination Center. However, there might be instances where the National Commissioner will then establish a task team or an intervention team and direct you to say the funding could be given to a specific province to deal with that particular task team or to manage it. But in the main, the budget is allocated at the National Operation Coordination Center.
Okay. And so the budget allocations for the PKTT would come then from whatever budget is made available in that National Operation Coordination Center?
It will be clearly indicated. There are various task teams, various operations as well as interventions that will be allocated. I have heard the latest to say it is 11 of such interventions. It will be allocated, it will be clearly indicated. However, when the task team started in 2018, the budget was allocated to the province, and over the years, then it was allocated to the National Operations Center.
So can I just confirm, when you're talking about 2018, are you talking now about the PKTT?
Yes.
So that's the 2018-2019 budget period?
18-19 budget, yes. At inception.
Yes. And so that initial budget was drawn, as you said, from provincial?
It was allocated nationally. It's a special allocation. It's not part and parcel of the baseline allocation of the province. It will be a special allocation. We would then establish a project code on the system to be able to track the expenditure as well as to be able to can predict the allocations linked to that particular task team.
Okay. So how many task teams do you have in the SAPS at the moment?
If I am correct, I have read somewhere that the latest is 11. 11, it's task teams / operations / intervention teams.
And in your witness statement, to focus more sharply on the issue of the PKTT and the budget and how it's been allocated over the past few years, in your witness statement, you begin to detail how the budget has been allocated. Can I ask you to, maybe for a globular view, can we turn to page 15 of your witness statement?
Okay, is it paragraph 15?
Page 15, it's table A.
Okay. Yes, I have table A.
So, can you discuss or explain to the committee what table A is intended to explain?
Okay. When I was invited to the committee chair, I was requested to provide expenditure trends for the PKTT since inception. And I was also requested to provide a comparison in terms of the PKTT and other existing task teams or intervention teams. So I have two tables. I will start with table A. This is expenditure items that were recorded for the PKTT for the different financial years since inception. You will note that the first year...
Dimpane, let me maybe slow you down a little bit. You say these are expenditure items and these need to be differentiated from the allocations.
Yes.
So can you just explain what that means?
On table A, it only depicts the expenditure items. These are expenses that have been incurred since inception by the PKTT. To this end, 435 million has been spent in this regard. However, you will note that on the annexures that I have provided that supports my statement that I was also requested to provide the budget approvals in this regard. So I do have the budget approvals that I have referred to on my statement. If I am to take you through.
Can I just go back to those annexures that are in your statement? Those are those information notes over the particular years?
Yes, and allocation letters as well.
So those information notes, they depict essentially what is allocated.
Yes.
But what this table is showing is the actual expenditure that eventually then goes through.
Yes, correct.
So at the top, the overall figure you have at table A is that to date, there's been 435 million spent on the PKTT.
Correct.
Can you speak or at least discuss how that has been broken down over the particular years and what the various expenditure items are?
Okay. As indicated, table A will then depict expenditure items that were recorded for the PKTT. And I must indicate that these are the direct controllable costs that we utilize as and when we allocate funding to the various intervention teams. These are the figures that we will then utilize. You will note that since 2018-19 up to this year, September, in the last column, that your biggest cost driver in terms of the work of this team would be on the line item called overtime, as well as travel and subsistence, in the main, the accommodation. The members of the team may not necessarily come from KwaZulu-Natal. It will be members that come from head office and elsewhere, and you need to then accommodate those members and pay the accommodation fees. They do work overtime. That is why you will see those two line items being a little bit on an increased trend. You do have a few items there in terms of their costs, as well as from time to time those that will require to travel, they will then travel. When you look at the last year, 25-26 on overtime, you will note that there is a zero. It does not mean that the team has not performed and claimed overtime. We will soon be processing their claims, and there will be an expenditure in relation to this financial year. So they are continuously working, currently working, and I am certain that those claims are currently being processed, and you will soon then record expenditure in that regard. So overtime, travel, as well as issues of their meals will be the line items that you will note a bit of an increase in terms of those expenditure items.
So, just to take you back, these various expenditures are the expenditure items that have been incurred over the past 6 years throughout the lifespan of the PKTT, is that correct?
Yes.
And you've highlighted the overtime as one of the big expenditure items from the team. Can you talk to me? I see, when I look at the table, I see that travel and subsistence, then there's for accommodation, food and beverage incidental costs, and air and road travel. And they seem to make up the first four also big expenditure items that arise from the team.
Yeah, that is correct.
Is that, and this is my layman understanding, is that because the team is not a formal structure and it's drawing from different provinces, or is there a reason why that travel and subsistence is such a big expenditure item?
As I indicated, when the operational environment would agree or pick up crime patterns or crime trends in an area, any area in the country, and they sit and discuss and analyze and come to a conclusion that we need to go and stabilize that situation. Sometimes they will use the local guys, sometimes they will then deploy from all over the country based on the decisions as well as the approvals in this regard. The members of this task team are from across various environments, and you need to accommodate them as and when they go and operate in KwaZulu-Natal or operate elsewhere in the country. And you need to also ensure that there is food as well as S&T that is provided for them. And they do work hard, they do claim overtime in this particular regard. So it's not anything that is strange. This is how the work of the police is done. This is how the task teams as well as those interventions. And those task teams would have been established for a specific period to go and achieve a specific outcome. So they are temporary in nature, these interventions as well as these task teams. They are not permanent. They are established for a specific period, they are established for a specific purpose, and there will be cost estimates that will then be submitted to the National Commissioner, and the submission will come to us to confirm if funding is available. Of course, as the finance team, as myself as the CFO, occasionally there is a need for me to comment or raise concerns in relation to this. You will note that over the years...
Let me just ask you a question before you pivot in relation to that. What I'm trying to ascertain from you is the expenditure trend that we see here. Is that an expenditure trend that you would see if the team was more permanent rather than it being a task team? Or is it an expenditure trend that is one that is like this because you're dealing with an informal structure where members are coming in and out at various points?
If it was a permanent team or permanent unit, let's say for instance, it is established in KwaZulu-Natal, and I'm making an example, then you will not have an expenditure line item that is called accommodation, because members will be permanent, they will be staying in their homes. You will not see expenditure items that talks to issues of meals, because the members will be permanent at home. Safe to say that perhaps from time to time they will be required to travel elsewhere to another province on investigation, and then you will see those accommodation costs coming up if they are required to travel out of their normal station in this regard.
So obviously, whether the team is a permanent or a task team is not a decision that's made by finance. It's just in relation to noting this particular expenditure trend.
It is not a decision that is made by finance. It is a decision that would be made by the accounting officer, having consulted all the relevant role players in terms of operations. That would be the head of operations, which is the deputy provincial commissioner, operations, and all the relevant role players. If, for instance, a decision is taken to say there is a stubborn crime trend in Western Cape, those decisions will be taken by the relevant operational environments, and the National Commissioner would then approve to say, we are going to intervene, let us go and stabilize that particular. So it is operational decisions. What is required from us is to support such interventions to ensure that the country is safe.
May we take Honorable Sangone?
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, General. Just a quick question for follow-up, for clarity, Chair. Before Advocate Zigalala goes off on the expenditures, I just wanted to check with the CFO. If a member is deployed, let's say from Limpopo to KwaZulu-Natal, in terms of these line items here, would that one member, for example, be eligible for overtime, accommodation, food, and a daily allowance? Can we read it like that, that they will get all of those things as okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Correct, Chair.
Thank you. I want to pivot into Table B. Is there anything in relation to Table A that you want to elaborate on or explain?
I am fine, Chair. Safe to say that all these expenditures would have been approved by the accounting officer in this regard. Those submissions do come to us to then ascertain financial viability as well as to support the work that is done by this team.
And those information notes, for just for the purposes of the committee, are attached, the various approvals that were made over the years. Can I ask you then to turn to page 17 of your statement? And that's Table B.
Chair.
So what we looked at in Table A was the expenditure of the PKTT over the past 6 years alone. Can you tell us what Table B is explaining here?
As I indicated, Chair, on the invitation to appear before this committee, it was also requested of me to provide a comparison in terms of other existing interventions and or task teams. We are indicating on paragraph 15 that as certain crime threats emerge, the relevant national operation environments in SAPS will from time to time coordinate deployments, interventions, task teams, or operations with the primary purpose of stabilizing as well as normalizing such crime situations. Various such deployments, interventions, or task teams had been coordinated and managed by SAPS over the multiple financial years, of which only the prominent ones were deemed appropriate to be mentioned for comparative purposes. As I indicated, there is an indication that there are 11. However, for purposes of this exercise, we then deemed it necessary only to focus on those ones that are prominent and they are deemed appropriate for purposes of comparisons. So the details are indicated in terms of Table B.
So so just to clarify, though there are 11 task teams, when you're doing an analysis trying to compare apples for apples essentially, to see which interventions, which task teams you're spending money on, you essentially chose these ones, which I think is 6 on table B, to be able to do the comparison.
That is correct, Chair.
So can you just a brief description about what these various task teams and so on that you have selected to be able to do this comparison are?
So Table B indicates expenditures that were recorded for prominent subs, national deployments, interventions, as well as task teams, etc., for different financial years. For purposes of comparisons, we then took from 2018-19. We have the first one that I have heard that it deals with the issues of illicit mining. This is an operation or an intervention that is normally called Valam Gold. You will note that this particular intervention only started in 23-24, and we have expenditure up to 25-26, up to end of September. This one, you will note that the expenditure up to date for 3 years is over R1 billion. And I will indicate to the committee that this is mainly an operation or an intervention that is funded through CARA funding. It's funding that does not come from our baseline. We are given an opportunity as the law enforcement agencies to, from time to time, approach the CARA funding committee to then request funding. The CARA committee or the CARA funding is funding that is used to assist departments. This is the criminal assets recovery account. So from time to time, the accounting officer, having assessed the financial or alternative financial sources, would approach the CARA committee. So the illicit mining or the Valam Gold intervention is funded from that particular source, and this source is not part of our baseline. It is money.
In relation to, so when we're looking at this comparison, though the various task teams are listed, and this illicit mining one is just in absolute numbers, the most expensive, or the one that's cost the most at 1.1 billion.
Correct.
That 1.1 billion actually isn't coming out of the SAPS budget.
It is not.
Okay.
It is not. It is funding that was sourced through the CARA committee by the accounting officer, and we are grateful for that. And the reason why we would then go and look for alternative funding is because of the financial constraints that we find ourselves in. We have experienced financial constraints in a form of budget reductions on our operational funding. For us to be able to succeed with these operations, we from time to time have to then make funding available, and it becomes a challenge when you are faced with budget reductions in terms of operational funding. So we look at other alternative funding sources, and this is one, and as a department we are grateful for such. So this is money that was made available for us to be able to go throughout the provinces that had issues in terms of managing this crime pattern, and 1.1 billion has been utilized up to so far.
Yes. So then the next one is the 2021 unrest. So an intervention or a task team was then established. Can you just talk us through that?
Yes, during the 2021 unrest, there was a situation that needed to be contained, and obviously it could not be contained using the normal resources in those provinces that were affected. Therefore, decisions were taken to put together special interventions and special teams to go and support those provinces. You will note that then we had the bulk of the expenditure lying on 2021, and then few claims that came through in 2022 up to 24-25. These are the expenses that were incurred in support of those operations, as well as interventions in those provinces that were affected.
So what I can see from this table is that over the period in which the SAPS was dealing with that unrest, that it costs just 950 million, so just shy of R1 billion, to be able to deal with that unrest situation. And this was drawn directly from the SAPS budget.
It was drawn directly from the SAPS budget, and we needed to reprioritize because it was a situation that was confronting us. We needed to reprioritize and ensure that we contain that situation through ensuring that there are sufficient deployments and support that was provided to the provinces that were affected.
Is this just from my layman understanding, is this what would be the classic idea of a task team where something happens that is unexpected, like the 2021 unrest, and the SAPs have to react, and then budgets have to be reprioritized and allocated to deal with that? Is this, if one wanted to get a kind of simplified example, that everyone's familiar with?
Not necessarily. We deal with different situations. Like I indicated, the operatives will sit and do their crime. Analysis and identify stubborn areas. There are other stubborn crime patterns that would demand or require from the SAPS leadership to then deal with them in other, applying other methodologies. Then there will be those that are unexpected that you'll have. So we deal with quite a number of situations that from time to time requires special intervention or special attention in this particular regard. You will note that the next one, before I get to the political task team, would be operations in Cape Town. We have been in the Western Cape and investing in terms of resources, additional resources to deal with those issues in this particular regard. So we deal with different situations, different policing problems emerge from time to time. You do have areas that require stabilization. You do have areas that requires additional resources in this regard. Sometimes you then do have those that will take place now. For instance, you look at the March 2023 shutdown. It is a situation that needed to be contained in this regard. You will note that during that March, it was a closure of the books or closure of the financial year, and you then needed to spend or process those payments in March, and in the following year, probably in April, those claims that could not go through then went through in April in the following year. So you do have different type of policing challenges that the police are confronted with from time to time, and those challenges requires different interventions and different plans and strategies.
So just finally, in relation to this table, I see some of these intervention units, the expenditure is only for a couple of years, whereas I can see that in relation to the PKTT operation Lockdown and Thunder, and the Mkhwanazi cross-border in KZN, those have a task team operations and expenditure that's been incurred for at least 6 years.
Yes.
So does that mean that, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, if when you're looking at the 432, you must also consider the duration within which the expenditure was incurred, whereas some of these seem to have incurred the expenditure over a shorter period.
Yes, correct. And when you look at those three, perhaps they are the more comparable ones. You will note that for Lockdown as well as Mkhwanazi, then the expenditure goes down. Evaluations of these interventions do take place from time to time. The operational environments and the project team leaders will convene and have discussions and evaluate and take decisions to say we are demobilizing or we are reducing the number of deployments. So those operational decisions are a norm, and those discussions are a norm, and of course, any decision would have to then go through the accounting officer or the national commissioner to then approve such a decision in that regard.
So when I look at these tables, I see vast amounts of money that is being spent on various operations. And these are the, as you say, the absolute sums, the expenditure that's come through. Are you able to give an assessment whether they are on value for money, whether these operations are successful or so on, just looking at these tables?
These tables that I've provided to the committee are not necessarily indicating the impact assessment, and these are some of the concerns that we normally raise from a financial point of view with the operational environments, to then look at the issues of value for money or impact assessment. Of course, ultimately we are assessed as a country in terms of whether, or as the police in terms of whether the crime stats or crime statistics are going down. However, from a financial point of view, what we have then done, this is a conversation that we always ask ourselves, because we need to ensure that there is return for investment. We spend a lot of money on these interventions, and we need to ensure that there is indeed return for investment. So in 2024, myself and my team, we then approached the research unit. We do have a research unit in SAPS precisely for this, because I would want to know from a finance point of view that is this a correct policy methodology? Is it yielding any impact, and is it value for money? So we then wrote to our research department to assist us with this impact study on all these operations, and also to advise us, because currently we do not have a model that we can utilize to assess value for money of all these operations. So we approached them, and there is indication that work has been done on the lockdown as well as Valamgodi operations. That impact assessment has been done. However, the report has not yet been discussed or issued in this regard. It also, the research unit has also indicated that they are in the process of developing this value for money model that we can utilize, but they have cautioned me to say it is not an easy process. It is difficult. It takes into account the number of variables, and they have to engage with a number of stakeholders. However, if they are successful before the end of this financial year, they will be presenting us with that model that we can utilize and be able to take decisions and assess that indeed there was value for money and there was return on investment in terms of all these interventions that we have done. So it is a conversation that we have had, myself and the team, as well as the research team, because we need then to advise the organization in this regard. So we look forward to the outcome of that assessment from our research environment, and it will assist us in this regard to ensure that there is efficiency in terms of the work that we do and the resources that we make available.
So what we've managed to look at is to be able to look at the PKTT's budget expenditure as a whole over its lifespan, and we've been able to look at the PKTT as a task team vis-a-vis or as against other interventions and task teams, and how those expenditure trends have been done in order to be able to have a comparison.
Correct.
So the one thing, and just to take you back in your witness statement, you then outline the various discussions you've had with the National Commissioner in relation to budget and expenditure for the PKTT in particular, because that's the team we're talking about. I wanted to ask, is there anything in relation to the conversations you've had with the National Commissioner about the PKTT that you'd like to be able to highlight or explain in relation to how the budget has been allocated to that team?
We always have conversations, myself and the National Commissioner, when it comes to these interventions, including the resources that are required to support these interventions. When it comes to the PKTT, the request for funding would come to us and we would have those conversations. When it comes to the PKTT, I have had conversations with the National Commissioner to say, my understanding is that a task team is established for a specific period, for a specific reason, and then it is withdrawn. But with the PKTT, we have noted that it is clearly dealing with something that is permanent. So for us, from a budgeting point of view, it becomes challenging when you receive applications almost every 3 months for 5 years. So you are unable to budget properly, you are unable to project properly. It may be necessary that perhaps this becomes a permanent structure to deal with the permanent problem that seemingly exists that they are dealing with. So we have had those conversations. It was my understanding that this particular team was established to deal with the problems in KwaZulu-Natal. I've even made suggestions to say, let us task OD, the OD is our organizational development, to put together a permanent structure, and we give this structure to General Mkhwanazi in KwaZulu-Natal to deal with this permanent problem, because for 5 years we can continue like this from a budgeting point of view. Now, if it is a permanent structure, then you are able to resource it properly, you are able to budget and plan for it properly so that then you support the team to be able to do its job. So we have had those conversations in this particular regard, myself and the National Commissioner. And the National Commissioner, then during those conversations, obviously, from an operational point of view, knowing that the work of this PKTT has been, the scope has increased. They are no longer only operating in KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, he has got no obligation to explain that to me. He said, perhaps then it should not be local. If it is a permanent structure, it should not be localized in KwaZulu-Natal, and that structure perhaps could be in head office. So those are the conversations that we have. So if it is a national structure, then it will be able to serve all the provinces should there be any political issues that are picked up in other provinces. So for me, from a budgeting point of view, it is an issue that I have raised. However, I raised it in the view that then this team clearly is dealing with something permanent. Let's make it permanent so that then there is proper budgeting, there is proper resource allocation, and there is proper accountability in this regard when it is a permanent team. So I have had those conversations.
So as I understand your evidence, and you'll correct me, the difficulty with dealing with a team that is not a permanent structure is that it's not formally budgeted for, and that the applications come in every 3 months or sporadically or ad hoc in a way where you can't necessarily anticipate when the applications for further budget allocations would be made.
That is correct. And also for me, I need to be able to hold someone to account for the utilization of those resources that would have been allocated. And it also makes it easy for you to plan and to allocate resources in order to properly support that particular team. So if it becomes a team that operates for a longer period on a temporary basis, you are unable to, from a financial point of view, to then resource it properly and to make those projections properly. And then you will have other resources being utilized. Those resources would have been drawn from other units and so on and so on. So we needed it to be a structured team, continuing with its work, because it is doing a great work, and being supported with proper resources and obviously accountability. Someone has to be held accountable in terms of the monies that would have then been given to the team to do its job.
Yes. So this is a conversation, or these are conversations, they are outlined in the various sub-paragraphs of paragraph 13. I don't think we necessarily have to go there. With regards to how you resource this team and whether it should be made a permanent structure or not. But ultimately, that's not a decision for you to make, is it?
It is not.
And that's a decision which lies where?
With the accounting officer.
Yes. So, and maybe this is a good segue to then go into the second kind of theme of your evidence, because it has become a big part of the evidence that has been presented before this committee, that one of the reasons for disbandment of the team that was given by Minister Mkhwanazi was that he had various budget issues in mind. So I don't want you to address that now. I just want you to address, and maybe let's start at paragraph 17 of your statement on page 18.
Okay.
So at this point, Minister Mkhwanazi becomes the minister in charge of the SAPS at, when is it? Is it end of June, early July? And do you have any interactions with Minister Mkhwanazi?
Thank you, Chair. Like any other executive authority that will then be appointed to head the vote police, vote 28, Minister Mkhwanazi became the executive authority for SAPS after the elections in the 7th administration. As part of the executive management of SAPS, we were requested to then embark on meetings to assist with the orientation of the new minister together with his team. And these meetings, or the orientation meetings, would have been arranged by ministry through the Office of the National Commissioner. And we will be invited from various environments to ensure that then we present certain reports that would have been required. During the minister's orientation, I was requested by the National Commissioner to make reports and presentations on the overall budget framework as well as the department's budget. I have to date, I can confirm that I have made 5 of such presentation. The first presentation or report that I made in terms of those various meetings, these meetings would have been arranged and authorized by the National Commissioner, and in the main, the National Commissioner together with other executive management would have been present. The first meeting was on the 12th of July, where we had a presentation that we made. We called it an introductory briefing to the minister. I made that presentation to orientate the minister in terms of the budget of SAPS. The second meeting was on the 31st of July, 2024, where I made a presentation that spoke to financial matters pertaining to the police. The third meeting was on the follow-up meeting was on the 14th of August. This was a follow-up of a meeting that had taken place on 31 July because there would have been questions and other issues that the minister would have raised. So we then conducted the follow-up meeting on the 14th of August. There were issues, concerns raised on issues of civil claims and other cost pressures. And then the next follow-up meeting, this is now following up the meeting that took place on the 14th of August, was a meeting that was held on the 12th of September 2024, where there were other instructions or expectations, issues such as the financial pressures. The minister wanted to know the split between head office as well as provinces, issues of capacitation of crime intelligence and other important environments. The last meeting that I have had with the minister, authorized by the National Commissioner, was on the 6th of June 2025, where we are then taking the minister through the apportioning of the 2025 budget in this regard. And I can confirm.
So just to take you one step back. So the minister, when he gave his evidence, he explained that there was pretty much like a 6-month orientation session that was taking place within the SAPS, starting from July when he took over as the executive authority.
Yes.
And what you are explaining is that during that orientation session, at various points you were asked to make presentations to the to the minister, and you have attached in your witness statement the various presentations that you made to the minister in relation to various financial and budgetary issues relevant to the SAPS.
Correct.
So just over paragraph 19, can you read that and then just explain what your evidence is from there?
Yes. I can confirm that all these 5 presentations that I've mentioned in paragraph 18 dealt with the budget framework, overall challenges, as well as pressure points in the organization. None of these presentations dealt with the matters that are relating to PKTT. To our strategic presentations, there was nothing that we spoke about in these 5 presentations that related to the PKTT.
So in these, so you're making these presentations, but they're at a very high level in relation to the overall SAPS budget and so on.
That is correct.
And even though your presentations may not have dealt with the PKTT, did the minister ever ask you in relation to budgetary issues and so on? On around, what is the budget implications of the PKTT, or express any concerns in relation to that?
I have never spoken to the minister about the PKTT budget. All discussions concerning the allocation of funds to the PKTT are solely between myself and the National Commissioner as the accounting officer. The typical process, as I had indicated, is that the project leader would then apply for an extension of funding as well and submit this request. The submission will then go through various levels of approval, eventually ending up with the National Commissioner. I usually have these conversations with the National Commissioner during this process. We regularly discuss matters with all teams, including matters that pertains to intervention task teams as well as the PKTT. These are routine conversations between myself and the National Commissioner. My role then is to confirm whether there is funding. If there is no funding, we then have a conversation with the National Commissioner in terms of determining priorities or reprioritizing to ensure that we support this. These are the conversations that I have only with the National Commissioner.
So these are conversations, as you say, that you have with the National Commissioner as the accounting officer in relation to how you allocate the budget, and that there were never conversations that were either that you had with the minister or that were ever raised with the minister in relation to how you're allocating the budget, how these task teams are essentially impacting the overall SAPS budget framework.
The presentation for 2025 in terms of the apportioning of the allocation, it spoke to the apportioning of the allocation to all cost centers, but it did not touch on anything that relates to the PKTT.
Okay. So can you confirm, how did you learn about the disbandment?
I had gone on leave from the 17th of December last year. That leave ended on the 10th of January 2025. So on the 2nd of January, while I was on leave, I learned of the disbandment. I think I saw something on one of the news outlets. That's how I learned about it. I was on leave.
And General Dimpane,
Advocate Zikalala, may we please take Honorable Ngola.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a follow-up, Chair, on the Minister being briefed about the budget arrangements of the PKTT. And it's very important, Chair, because the Minister bases strongly, amongst other reasons, that budgeting or financial costs of the PKTT were becoming too much. So has the minister or the national commissioner solicited any cost analysis of the PKTT from you?
No, Chair.
Have you ever been made to account on the cost effectiveness of the PKTT in the SAPS top management meeting?
No, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair.
May proceed. Honorable Matthews.
Also, just a follow-up or a question of clarity. There were 11, or there's 11 task teams. So did the minister also inquire about any of the other 10 at all, like specifically on how much was spent?
From me as a CFO, I have never.
In those 5 presentations to him, there was no questions from him or his team?
These were strategic presentations, Chair. I have never been requested to come and present in terms of the operations to the minister.
For any of them? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. You may proceed.
Thank you. So, as the committee members have already foreshadowed, it was a significant part of the minister's evidence before this committee that he had in mind these budgetary pressures when he wrote the disbandment directive and he essentially issued it. And when he was before this committee, one of the things that he relied on heavily was a comment you had made in an information note. Now, I don't know if the committee members have that information note. It's in the annexures, but the comment is also set out on paragraph 20, page 20, paragraph 23. The information note for those who want to look at the annexures is PPD 13 at page 105. And so, just to take one step back, this was an information note for the 2024, for the period 1 April 2024 to 31 March 2025. Is that correct?
Correct.
The information note was, as I see it, and I can pull it up quickly, was completed or was an application for funding that was done by General Khumalo. And that application for funding was then made, I think, in March. Let me check. Was made on the 26th of March, 2024. Is that correct? Do you have it before you?
That is correct.
So the comment that you made on that information note was essentially approved before the minister came into office.
That is correct.
And then can you then take us through essentially what you were trying to explain in that comment? You've set it out in paragraph 23 of your statement, if you want to have a look at that.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps before I even get to my comment, I wish to state that I did not give anyone permission to utilize that information note. That information note was an information note requesting funding from the project leader to the National Commissioner, and it came to my table to then confirm if funding is available. I was shocked to hear about that information note being utilized in evidence in this regard. And nobody has ever asked me about the context of that particular comment that I had made on this information note. Nobody. And it is a conversation that I had had with the National Commissioner when that request for funding came to our table. The project leader requested 94 million. You will recall that this information note comes in March. Somewhere towards the end of March, you are trying to close a financial year 23-24, and you are getting to the new financial year.
Can I just pause, because I think that is an important detail. The financial year for the end of the financial year is the end of March.
It's the end of March, yes,
So the information note comes on the 26th of?
March.
Yes. So it's coming just before you are about to close your books, or I don't know what you close.
Correct.
Yes.
It's coming just towards the closure of a financial year, and the
Before that, Chair.
May I
Yes,
proceed?
there's a question. Just
No, there was a point she was trying to articulate which she feels very strong about it. And she was interrupted that no one even asked her about it, and she was shocked to see. So I thought we must allow her to finish that ventilation. And then we can take forward the new question that she's talking about. Because this might be a platform where she feels she needs to express herself, and she has been sitting with this matter. And she must be given that opportunity.
That is granted. Honorable, General Dimpane, can you conclude the point that you wanted to elaborate?
I wanted to indicate that this is one of the many information notes or funding requests that will come to our table. This was a request that was made by the project leader, and it was submitted in March. This is a conversation that I have with the National Commissioner, and I make several observations and comments in this regard. And I get to be shocked when this information note is utilized as evidence and trying to portray a picture as if I was advocating for the disbandment of the political task team. It is taken out of context, and I believe that this is an important platform to then deal with the context in terms of this information note. I wish to state that I did not give anyone permission to use that or give anyone the physical document in this regard to use in their evidence. Now, this information note comes, it has been taken out of context. Then I make an observation to say we are closing a financial year. We are getting into the new financial year. Between April and May, we will be engaging in a process where we then allocate or a process of distributing resources to all cost centers in this regard. For the purposes of allowing this task team to then do their work, we agree with the National Commissioner that the initial allocation will then be 20 million. You will note that the project leader had requested 94. We agree with the National Commissioner that up until we finalize the internal apportioning of the budget, we will then confirm 20 million to allow for the team to work while we finalize the processes of internal apportioning. And those processes unfolded and they were concluded in May. And I can indicate to this committee that the allocation for the team for that financial year was not 20 million, it was 55. The 20 million was an initial allocation as agreed with the National Commissioner, and subsequently we then concluded the internal apportioning and decisions were taken, and additional funding was given to the team, and the total allocation for that year was 55 million. Now I raised these concerns to say the National Commissioner, this team has been in existence for a long time, and I think I have raised this earlier. It is impossible, it's practically impossible for me from a budget point of view to operate in this fashion. It will be best. And you will note that the last comment there I'm saying, task component OD, this is organizational development, to urgently conduct a work study investigation for the establishment of a permanent structure. And I'm talking to the permanent structure that relates to PKTT in KwaZulu-Natal. I had indicated that it was my view that this team was established to deal with the problems in KwaZulu-Natal. It's been 5 years. Clearly, this team is then dealing with a serious problem that does not want to go away. For us to be able to resource this team properly, let's have a permanent structure in KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, the National Commissioner has different views to say, not localized in KwaZulu-Natal. Perhaps when we deal with this and we come to that decision, it might be a team that is national to be able to deal with the similar problems in other provinces. Of course, he knew from an operational point of view, I'm assuming, that the scope of this team had expanded into other provinces. He had no obligation to share that with me. And ultimately, he then approved the initial allocation of 20 million. When we are done with the internal apportioning, then the total allocation to support this team for that year was 55 million. So the document has been out there, been discussed out of context, and nobody has ever reached out to me to say, what exactly did you mean by these comments? So I thought I would use this opportunity to then clear the air and clarify this. The allocation for that year was then 55 million with a total spending of 57.5 million at the end of that financial year. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Sangon.
Thank you very much, Chair. General, on that issue that you've well articulated the context, but I can tell that you are quite upset with your comment having been used as evidence. How does it work in SAPS? Because I see that information note had 3 signatures, if I'm not mistaken. General, okay. But you were the second last before the National Commissioner. Now, once you make your comment and it goes to the National Commissioner, ordinarily, does it go back down the line so everybody can see the comments? I'm trying to figure out, does it also go to the Minister? How does it get to the Minister's office for the Minister to then use it as evidence?
These submissions don't go to the Minister. It ends with the National Commissioner as the approving authority. Then it will go back to the project leader who would have applied for funding. I would, of course, have a copy to ensure that then I keep track in terms of the budget allocation as well as expenditures in this regard. They do not go to the Minister.
Sorry, Chair, it's just, so in your view, how, and I know that maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, but when the Minister brings this document, I mean, it's an operational discussion between, yourselves as the officials who are signing it off. If you had to hazard, how do you think the Minister even knows what you said? Because you said you never discussed this with him. He shouldn't, maybe asked that he shouldn't even know that.
Well, then approve it goes back to the person who had requested funding.